Recently, footage from a conference held by Marvel comic book writers was shared. Since these images were published on YouTube, I must state from the beginning that we have a direct source. In other words, the main reason for certain rumors appearing on social media was actually this footage. So, what was discussed at the Marvel Comic Writers Conference? In this video, I will talk to you about each of them. While I explain the latest details about the topic, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to avoid missing the upcoming ones. At the conference held by Marvel comic book writers, details about Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars films were shared. Because while the scripts of Marvel's Avengers films are being written, the comic book writers help fill in the blanks in the storyline. Therefore, many of these writers also assist during the screenplay writing process of the films. According to the first statement made by the comic book writers, Wolverine will kill a very important Marvel character in the upcoming movies. We know that Wolverine has taken down many of his arch-enemies from past to present, and he has even given up the woman he loved when necessary to save humanity. So for Wolverine, what matters is not his own pleasure or happiness, but rather the survival of people. That's why, although it's still uncertain who Wolverine will kill, it is said that he will kill someone we know very well from the MCU. Additionally, the comic book writers announced that Psylocke, who we know from the X-Men films, will return in the Avengers movies. Psylocke was initially an assistant working for Caliban, but later, she joined Apocalypse's team. After Apocalypse was defeated, she went her own way and completely distanced herself from the X-Men team. The return of this character in the Avengers movies could be very important for the newly starting X-Men cinematic universe. At the conference, it was also revealed that Scarlet Witch will return, but this time as a good character. Previously, in WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness, Wanda had turned into a fully evil character. In the new movies, she will have a different motivation. Normally, most of the villains we see in the MCU are not true villains, but anti-heroes. But since Wanda had become a true villain in every sense of the word, we're very curious to see how she will change so suddenly. Now, Wanda has no reason left to attack the multiverse. If the character returns, she may learn that the children she created in her own universe are actually still alive in this world. Currently, we believe Wanda is being hidden and imprisoned by the TVA. Because in the direct adaptation of the MCU comics, it is shown that Wanda is being kept in the TVA. In this case, if she returns and is not manipulated, which she clearly will be, there's no obstacle for her to become a good person. If we consider the matter from the point of view of being a good person, then Doctor Doom, who will be the main villain of the Avengers films, also cannot be considered entirely evil. Doctor Doom is more of an anti-hero, and he will do what needs to be done to ensure the survival of life in the multiverse. Rather than everyone dying, he will create a single world where the survivors can live. So ultimately, even if Wanda returns and is with Doctor Doom, we cannot say she will be a villain. In the same conference, it was also revealed that Robert Downey Jr. will portray both Doctor Doom and Iron Man variants in the upcoming Avengers films. The actor, who we have known as Iron Man since the beginning of the MCU, will now appear not only as Doctor Doom. Actors appearing in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars films may play multiple characters. Actually, when we look at the past MCU films and series, we've seen that an actor can portray more than one character. For example, Benedict Cumberbatch appeared as Doctor Strange in almost every universe. So far, no one else other than Robert Downey Jr. has been shown as Iron Man in the MCU. Even the versions of Iron Man in the What If series were completely designed to resemble Robert Downey Jr. However, many people still want a potential evil Iron Man version to be portrayed by Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise would be a perfect fit for the superior Iron Man character. Even though Robert Downey Jr.'s new Iron Man versions will appear in the Avengers films, it's still possible for others to play Iron Man as well. In a production where universes will have to fight each other, we will already be seeing many character variants. According to another statement made by the writers, Chris Evans will portray multiple characters as well, including an evil Captain America variant. There was a version of Captain America known as Nomad. This version stood out not as Captain America, but as Steve Rogers. They could also show a version of Captain America who actually worked for Hydra and had his brainwashed. Just like Bucky was captured by Hydra and turned into the Winter Soldier, there are versions where Captain America is also captured and turned into a Hydra agent. If Captain America had been captured instead of Bucky, no one would have heard from him. As a result, Steve Rogers would take Bucky's place and serve Hydra as a super soldier. For example, in the Avengers Endgame movie, Hydra agents believed that Steve Rogers might be a Hydra agent.
Hail Hydra.
This means that Hydra had certain plans for Captain America stretching from the past to the present. After Captain America went missing, many people claimed that he was found by Hydra and that information had been injected into his mind. At one point, people even thought that the Winter Soldier character was actually Steve Rogers. Many said that the comic writers were giving spoilers and that Kevin Feige would be upset about it. However, based on the information provided, I don't think there were any extra details. These were just clues that had already been shown in previous Marvel films. Kevin Feige is not known to get along well with Marvel Comics writers. Maybe most of you don't know this, but he had a serious attitude toward the writer of Deadpool. In fact, Rob Liefeld even said that he wasn't invited to the Deadpool premiere. I don't think Kevin Feige is very tolerant toward comic book writers. Even though the MCU is normally considered Earth 199,999, Kevin Feige insists on calling it Earth 616. He constantly tries to replace the original Marvel universe from the comics with the MCU. In other words, he's trying to push the cinematic universe forward while leaving the comics behind. It's clear that there's a serious power struggle going on within Marvel. It seems like everyone's trying to please Disney, especially in the She-Hulk series. They portrayed Kevin Feige like some kind of god. Being the president of Marvel doesn't mean owning Marvel, of course. The real authority over Marvel lies with the CEO of Disney. If Disney wishes, Marvel movies and series will continue. In fact, at one point, Disney even tried to directly restrict Marvel's movies. However, they eventually managed to resolve this issue. Right now, they've said that the MCU takes place in a multiverse completely independent from the comics. We can say that there are two different multiverses within a single omniverse. That's why the MCU and Marvel comics actually separated a long time ago and remained completely independent from each other. But we know that even the MCU sometimes uses comic book stories to fill in its narratives. Therefore, Marvel needs to end its conflict with comic book writers. Actually, here's how it happens. Kevin Feige writes a specific script and then delegates the task of filling in the gaps in that script to the writers. In turn, the writers seek help from comic book writers to fill those gaps. So, the reason we see comic book references in movies is because they directly get assistance from comic book writers. That's why even regular Marvel comic book writers can actually possess a lot of insider knowledge about MCU films. Yes, friends, I hope you liked the content I prepared. If there are any other videos you'd like to see, don't forget to write them in the comments. That's all from me for now. Take care and goodbye.